they're here. ES modules in Node.js. What can I do? That's the name of the talk. Hi, I'm Gil Tayar. I am so happy to be in NodeConf remote. I think 2 years ago I was in NodeConf EU in beautiful, beautiful Ireland. Hopefully, like 2021 or maybe 2022, I will be back there because that conference, online and offline, is amazing. So thank you for having me to this talk. I think ES modules, I mean, they started like 2020 basically in Node.js, and I think they're a game changer. And this talk is basically a love song to ES modules. I am part of the working group. I'm not really a part of the working group. I'm an observer of the Node Modules Working Group in ES Modules Working Group in the Node.js. But I've been an admin observer. Basically everything. So hopefully I'll be able to impart some of that information and some of that love back to you. So yes, they're here. ES modules in Node.js. First of all, let's give a bit of context. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the new syntax, not module.exports and require, which is like old Node.js module system. We're talking about the new JS module system, which is part of JavaScript. Export, function, whatever, import from whatever. The ability to use what has been a standard from 2015. June 2015, ES modules are born and standardized as part of ES6 or ES 2015. 2017, that's 2 years later, ESM lands in Node.js. But that's what I call the old ESM. Lots of controversy, lots of problems. Nobody adopted it. It was still experimental, and it had lots of criticism about it. January 2020, yes, this year, some good things did happen in 2020. ES modules are unflagged and with basically good, people are talking about them mostly in a good way in 13.8.0. And this is obviously the version I will be talking about. And the answer is, why did it take 5 years? Why did it take so long to add ES modules to Node.js? Are they any good compared to Node.js? And if they are, how do I migrate to ES modules from CommonJS, which is the old module system with module.exports and require? So hi, I'm Gil Tayar. I'm like, go all the way back to the 80s, 35 years of experience, always been a developer, probably always will be, love testing code. I'm currently an evangelist and architect at Applitools. Nothing to do with this talk. We deliver visual testing tools. So if you're front end and you're serious about visually testing your app, please check it out. Okay, so let's go. We have a lot to cover. Actually, I'm not going to cover everything because in these past 6 months, they just continued adding things to ES modules, really, really great things, but we'll cover the most important things. So what are ES modules? Let's do a primer for people who aren't really exposed to that and use CJS. In CJS, you do module.exports.add equals function to create an import. That's util.js. In ESM, because it's standard, there's syntax for that. You just do an export function and whatever. To import in CJS and CommonJS, you require that file and get back the module with whatever the named exports. In ESM, you do import, get the named imports from util.mjs, again, specific syntax. Now, there's more to the syntax than that, and I have a previous talk about the differences between CJS and ESM. We're going to stop here. If you want to read about ESM, there's tons of information on the web. Notice the extension is different. JS, MJS, we will be talking about that. So see how similar they are? I mean, basically the same, except for like different syntax. So is it just syntactic difference? And the answer is no, it is not just syntactic difference. There's very big difference about that. And there are 4 main differences that I can think of. ESM is strict. And we're going to go over each of them, each event and every one of them, don't worry. ESM is strict mode, CJS is not. ESM is browser compatible, CJS is not. ESM is statically parsed, ES modules are statically parsed, CommonJS is not. And ES modules are async, CommonJS modules are not. let's start. And by the way, these differences are part and a big part of why it took so long to build that bridge from CJS to ESM, to start thinking about how to make Node.js more of an ESM runtime than a CJS runtime, although it's going to be CJS for like 10, 20 years probably. So let's start with the differences. ESM is strict, CJS is not. Let's take this code, the same, well, no, actually, let's look at the first thing. We have on the right side CJS. If I do an assignment to X and X isn't defined, X will become global in CJS unless I use strict. If I use strict, that part on the right side will be will throw an exception. ESM, because it's strict, you don't need to write use strict. Once you write that, an exception will be thrown because X does not exist unless declared. Another thing is, in CJS, if you're not using use strict, then this points to the global object, or roughly similar. So this is defined. In ESM, this will be undefined because ESM is strict. So another thing is, CJS is not allowed to import. Import assert from assert will work in ESM, won't work in CJS, because ESM is what is called in JavaScript module syntax, and CJS is what is called script syntax. So remember, CJS is not allowed to import, ESM is. By the way, CJS is allowed to do await import, but we'll talk about that later. So notice that if you want to lint code, you have to understand what is CJS and what is ESM. The editors, the linters, the runtimes, the whatever, they need a signal to know how to parse the text and show what that text means, because it means different things in different in ESM and CJS. So the creators, so the people who brought ESM into Node.js decided to come up with a simple rule. The signal is the extension. It was very controversial. A module is ESM if and only if the extension is MJS, like module.js. And a module is CJS if and only if the extension is JS. Very simple rule. A lot of people call it the Michael Jackson script. So they came up with this simple rule and thought, oh, we're good. And it really is a simple rule. You see MJS, you know that it's ESM. You see JS, you know that it's CJS. Very simple, perfect. But the community hated MJS. People had, people are bound. JS is JavaScript, so why are you mucking around with that? Please don't do that. The community hated MJS. Not only that, toolings like TypeScript and editors and linters and whatnot had problems with MJS. Things started to go wrong, and retrofitting all those tools probably would work, but these things take time. And believe me, I know I took some code and moved it to ESM, and I had a lot of problems with MJS. But 2020, we have the final version of ESM in Node.js. What they did was added the ability in the package JSON to add type colon module. Once you do that, all the files under that package JSON, the JS will mean ESM, will not mean CJS, will mean ESM, so you can continue using the JS syntax. A simple thing was made complex, not a huge fan of that, mostly for sentimental reasons, also for tooling reasons, but we're human, that's okay. We are allowed to do sentimental things. Another thing, ESM this is a game changer. ESM is browser compatible, and we'll see that CJS is not, and we'll see that non-real ESM, what I call Babel and TypeScript ESM, is also not browser compatible. And I'll talk about what that means. Let's take a small Node.js ESM, a small toy project. In it, we have an MJS ESM module, which imports from another module, from this module here. Okay, imports a function greet and just calls it. To run it in Node.js, you just do node ESM module.mjs, boom, everything works. The exact same code, if you do script in the browser, in an HTML file, script type equals module, you need to type equals module, and you add a source to that MJS, the exact same browser, the exact same code will work in the browser without any transpilation needed. How come? Because when a browser sees this import, it will HTTP the file server and ask for a module.mjs. And if your file is named a module.mjs, it will get it. But this works only because we specified the extension. If we do like in CJS where we import from a module without specifying .js or .mjs, then it won't work because the browser will ask for a module. It won't ask for a module.js. It doesn't understand adding an extension. It doesn't work for browsers. So the people that brought ESM to Node.js said, we will force the extension, even if it's like weird for CommonJS people, we will force them to put in the extension so that we can become browser compatible. And for the same reason, when you do a require and you give it a folder name, Node.js, when you do a require in CJS, it will look for index.js, and it has all these rules to look for other things. Nothing like that in MJS world, nothing like that in ESM world. You have to specify the path to the file with the folder, with the extension, with the index.mjs, whatever needs to be done, it has to be there, all for the sake of browser compatibility. And I think this is a brilliant decision, and it's a good decision. Wait, but what about bare imports? If you do import from an ESM module like Lodash or whatever, this doesn't work in the browser because in Node, we do the whole Node modules thingy, right? So this, first of all, this still works in ESM. You don't have to specify the path. You don't have to specify /node module / an ESM module / whatever. You can just specify the bare specifier, and ESM will still crawl up and look for it in Node modules and all that. So they work just like CJS, but that means that this code does not work in browsers, which is true today, but they will. There's an extension that is being like standardized or trying to be standardized. It actually works in Chrome today, which is called import maps. And the way this works is this. And in the browser, again, you specify the script, and you specify import, and you specify a bare import, a bare specification. And what it does, it will look in the script import map and look for that name and know what the exact extension of that file is, the exact path to that file is, and it will just work. So bare specifiers plus import maps will give us browser compatibility even for bare specifiers, basically for all the code you write in Node.js. So we're getting full compatibility between Node.js and browsers. Obviously, if you're doing things like using FS or OS and everything, that will work because browsers don't support those modules, but JavaScript code will work. So full compatibility between Node.js and browsers inside a package, as I said, because we need to specify the whole path relative, all imports are compatible. Between packages, a build tool will generate an import map. The import map will be included by the HTML, and boom, instant compatibility with no Webpack, by the way. Notice that we are not using Webpack. Obviously, if you have hundreds of packages, this won't work because in terms of speed, that won't work. But people are working to make that also not a problem. I think in 1 or 2 years, Webpack and its brethren will slowly, I hope, slowly fade away, and we will be, at least in development mode, and we will be able to use ESM and modules without any need for a build tool. So yay, full browser Node.js compatibility. ESM is statically parsed. And let's look at how CJS modules are loaded. This is like a graph. This loads this, and these load the two others. In CJS, you don't load a module, you execute it. And once you reach require, then the require itself will load the second package, second module, and run it, which gets to the require, which loads this, writes the console log. And when it does the require, it runs this. That file will do module.exports.greeting and go back. But notice what happens. Here, we're exporting greetings. Here, we're getting greet. So what will happen is greet will be undefined. So it will say during execution, greet is not a function. In ESM, it's different. Same thing, I just transpiled to ESM, same code. First of all, we're not executing the code. We're parsing it, looking at the imports. It looks at the imports. Node.js will look at the imports, browsers too, by the way, see that hello.mjs, load it, not executed yet, we're still in the loading, parse it, find the export imports and see that they're okay, and then goes on to the next import, which will bind who and who together. Then it goes to the next import and try to bind greet and greetings and say, whoa, there's a problem here. Notice we haven't executed anything yet. So what it will say is syntax error. The requested module does not provide an export name greet. So the parsing binding failed before execution. Let's fix that and change it to greetings and we're good. Now comes the execution part. So how does the execution part look like? Now it's starting to run the code bottom up. It will execute module number 1, and then module number 2, and then 3, and then 4, and we're done. Totally different from CJS, and remember that it looks very similar, but in terms of execution model, it's different. So static parsing, yay, great. Well, actually not that big of a deal, because in the day-to-day, does this really matter? Not allowed. But it allows the fourth thing, which is very important, which is ESM is an async module loader. Remember the load, parse, and bind thing? Think of that loading and parsing 3 and 4 can theoretically happen in parallel. So if you have a big tree of hundreds of modules, loading and parsing them can happen concurrently before execution starts. Now, the execution itself has to happen synchronously, like as we saw 3, 4, 2, 1, because that's how the specification defines it. But loading the files and parsing them can happen asynchronously and concurrently. So loading and parsing is async and concurrent in ESM, but in CJS it's synchronous. So if I have a require, everything stops. There is no event loop, there is no nothing. Even if the require is like not in the beginning, but dynamically loaded, that require will stop until the module and all its submodules will stop. ESM, on the other hand, if we do an await import, other async things will continue work because the ESM loader is asynchronous. So it doesn't stop async actions, while CJS, if you do a dynamic load, it will stop everything. And because of that, ESM supports top-level await, and CJS doesn't. And what is top-level await? Top-level await, I think, is stage 4 already, or maybe stage 3. It's basically a standard, which says this. Today, if you want to await something, it has to be inside an async function. But what if you want to await on the top level? Up to now, it wasn't allowed. But now we can do that. So if you want to asynchronously read a file, you can do that today. I think Node 14 allows that, maybe Node 15, not sure. So await fs read files, and you can read the config. Or if you want to do some kind of condition import, so based on the platform await Windows stuff or Unix, then you can do that with ESM, and and you can do that. And if you have like this script which uses asynchronous things, you don't have to wrap it anymore inside anything. So this is great. Top-level await is an amazing feature. It's like it closes the loop in terms of async await, but because CJS is synchronous, you can't really retrofit it to support top-level await, which basically means asynchronous execution of modules. But ESM is asynchronous, so we're good, and ESM can use top-level await. So to summarize, CJS versus ESM. ESM is strict, CJS is not. ESM is browser compatible, and I think this is a game changer to merge the worlds of front-end and back-end. CJS is not. ESM is statically parsed, CJS is not, which is not that big of a thing, but it enables ESM async execution, supporting top-level await, and probably other features in the future. CJS is not. Woo! Yay, ES modules. So, what about ESM using Babel TypeScript transpilation? I mean, a lot of people do that. Even in Node.js, which surprises me, they use the import syntax and everything, and Babel and TypeScript, well, basically what they do is they transpile import to require. a little bit of magic around it, but not a lot. Basically, every import is transpiled into a require. So first of all, because every import is a require, you don't get async parsing and execution, you don't get, which means it's not spec compliant, and you don't get async await. Okay, so even if you have import and you're transpiling and using Babel, you don't get async await. Not only that, ESM using Babel TypeScript, because it import turns into a require, it uses the Node.js CJS module resolution. So you don't have to specify the extension. You can use all those shenanigans you used in CJS. So basically, not browser compatible. And it's ironic because Babel and TypeScript, well, mostly Babel, was first of all used in the front-end world, which today is uses it extensively, and it's not browser compatible. It's ironic. So ESM is strict. Well, okay. So it's Babel. Just add use strict when transpiling. ESM is browser compatible. Babel transpilation is not browser compatible. Okay. So if you try and take that code and run it without Webpack, just like in Node it's possible, it won't work. ESM is statically parsed. Babel transpilation is not, because it's only transpiling import to require. And ESM is async and supports top-level await. Babel transpilation is not and does not support top-level await. And last of all, and this is a pet peeve of mine, ESM is native. It just works, okay? No transpiling and everything. Babel and TypeScript are transpile with all the difficulties that come. Some people like it, some people don't. But wait, there's more. Exports. Remember main in package JSON, where you can specify the entry point to a package? This is classic CJS. It works. So if you import something from a package, you will get main.mjs. But as we all know, you can backdoor into, deep link into the package and take whatever you want from there, even if the package member didn't want it. And sometimes that creates an inability to change things internally, because people are depending on that deep linking. Until now, ESM has the ability to add, and not main, but exports. So you can specify a mapping from a file to another, from a path to a file. So dot is just like main, and dot/world is world.mjs. So if I import from a package, I will get main.mjs. And then if I import from a package/world, I will get world.mjs. By the way, we got it because of ESM, but it is also supported for CJS. So, but once you have exports, those are the only entry points. You cannot write this. Just remember to keep the main field for backward compatibility, because you still want other people to use that. What else? Conditional exports. And this is great because this is a bridge from CJS to ESM. I don't have a lot of time, but what if I want a package that I can both require and import? And the answer is you can, by specifying conditionally, this is import entry point, this is the require entry point. And that will dual mode libraries that will work for both ESM and CJS. Just a buyer beware if you're using this code. Please read the documentation carefully. There are some caveats around dual mode libraries. Okay, and there's even more, but I have only 25 minutes. Migrating, toy application. I have main.js and greet.js. Bottom up is taking the bottom level modules and changing them to ESM. I just changed it to export. Now I can't use require because require doesn't work with ESM. So I do an await import, but I don't have top level await. So I wrap it up in an async function. Now, top down means I want to change MJS. One way of doing it is creating a require. You can create a require and then use require in ESM. That's also ability. Another thing is to just change it to an import. We now support named imports from CJS, but caveat, not all of them support that. If that doesn't work, use default export from import from CJS. So are we there yet? Can we start migrating? And the answer is yes and no. If you're on it, if you're building libraries, please start the migration process. Theoretically, you have all the tools. They're a bit rough around the edge. They work, sorta, In a year, they're probably all going to work. Start working on that. Start migrating in a while and slowly. Summary, ESM is much better than CJS. ESM is strict, CJS is not. ESM is browser compatible, it's statically parsed, it's async, and it supports top-level await, but breaks compatibility with Babel and TS ESM, with old-style ESM. And this is the reason, in my humble opinion, that it took so long. But it's worth it because standards compliant is a must-have. Async module system is very important, and browser compatibility for me is a game changer. And a slow migration from CJS to ESM is possible using dual mode libraries and top-down migration. Tooling still needs to be ready. It's almost there. But yes, they are coming, and hopefully, I have a video. So can you please show it? I can't show it from my. Let's see.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
For ESM. Please follow me at Gil Tayar on Twitter. If you have any questions, I understand I have about 2 minutes for questions, but if not, please DM me directly on Twitter at Gil Tayar. Questions?
Hi, Gil. Hi.
Yes.
That was fantastic. And I loved that Blade Runner at the end. That was hilarious. Yeah. Thank you so much for your talk. It was really, really informative. We've got a question coming through from, I think it's Mateus. Where do some of the ideas like top level await are inspired by Dino? Oh, sorry. Do you want me to ask that again? Dino. I didn't do a very good job. Yes.
No, yes. The idea for top-level await, first of all, Miles Borens is the champion, and he did an amazing job in pushing it through all the stages of DSC. Dino wasn't inspired by top-level await, just Dino implemented it before Node.js did, I think. So they're both very standards compliant, great runtimes. The anticipation, well, basically this is like a perfect, it just makes sense, and somebody had to do it, and Miles Borens did it, and thank you, Miles.
Okay, great, thank you. And now that you see ESM support getting more stable, do you see any more adoption coming for ESM?
Hello?
Hello?
Have I lost?
I think I've been lost. Hi.
Hello? Yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm back. I'm back. Oh.
That was awkward. That's okay.
I was talking to myself. So now ESM support is getting stable. Do you see more adoption coming?
ESM, yes. It'll take time. These things take time. I mean, transforming a whole ecosystem from CJS to ESM, I think 5 years. But, it's going to be exponential growth. And you can see the tooling there. Most of the testing tools are already there. Mocha, Ava, Tape, Jest is coming around. Mocking libraries. I did the implementation for test double, so we know mocking libraries can work with ESM. I'm guessing sign-on is in the way. I would say a year before it's really like production ready, and after that we'll be seeing it change. The big question is whether it will affect the front end world and whether they will also start becoming Node.js compliant and browser compliant, and the signs there are accepting it, at least as far as I can see. I think like 2 to 5 years we'll be looking back and say, how did we even work with CJS?
So should we all be starting to rewrite all our modules on NPM?
Slowly, do a pet project first, and then yeah. I mean, I'm not crazy, but in a year you'll be seeing people doing it. Like I'm going to start with at Applitools, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Gil. I understand that that's all that we've got time for. So thanks ever so much for your talk.